Welcome back, Freshwater Fishing Novices, new viewers. This is the Freshwater Fishing Novice YouTube channel. It's Freshwater Fishing Novice Friday. My name is Molez and I'm the Freshwater Fishing Novice. We're coming up on Easter, and that's why I got the ears on. What are we talking about today? Every time I go fishing with a fairly new angler or fisherman or fisherwoman, I always find myself giving them the 3 rigs. So we're going to talk about 3 rigs I always hand to beginners, and it seems to step them up, kick them ahead into fishing, and it makes it a little bit easier as a beginner angler. So let's look at what you're going to need to buy or acquire to make these rigs. So the good news is you're going to need 1 hook. This is going to be the extra wide gap hook. That extra wide gap hook, I usually put a size 1/0. That's the first thing you're going to get. With the extra wide gap hook, it has more real estate for the fish to bite and get hooked. So first thing, hook. What is the second thing we're going to need? For one of the rigs, we're going to need weight, and we're going to use what's called a bullet weight. I'm going to put a picture up here, another detailed picture. So I have like 3 bullet weights. On the left, it's a very small weight. It gradually steps up as you go to the right. I very rarely use that weight on the right. So I found that middle weight is what we're going to use for the 3rd rig we're going to talk about. We bought extra wide gap hooks. We've bought us like 5-pack of bullet weights. What's the last thing we need? We need plastics. Since we already talked about the hooks and the weights, we might as well look at the plastics I'm talking about. Always go to, for beginners, is going to be just a worm, 4.5, 5 inches, something like that. I always just go green watermelon, so it's got like black flake in it. Green with red flake would work. I stay with green because it's natural. It's going to look natural in the water. First plastic is going to be that stickbait. The second soft plastic lure is going to be like a craw imitation. I like this one. It's by, I know you guys are going to hate this if you don't like the Googan Squad, but it's the Googan Squad makes this bandito bug. And I've been throwing this thing for like 3 years and it is awesome. I'll show you guys how to rig it, but a craw is the second soft plastic I'm going to hand to a beginner. Last plastic, soft plastic, it's going to be a paddle tail swim bait. This I've been fishing for about 3 years as well. It took me a second to figure these out, and this is where you're going to need the weight, the bullet weight. Well, we're going to rig it up. The last one I like is that paddle tail swim bait. And the reason I gave these to beginners is the techniques. So let's talk about the techniques of the soft plastic. When I hand someone the rig with the soft plastic worm on it, I always start with no weight, just the hook. Toss it out and just let it fall through the water column and don't do anything. Make sure your line is tight, but you're not pulling it. You just want to be able to make sure if a fish comes by and grabs it and you see your line start moving, you can set the hook. You don't want to have slack line. I always go weightless with the craw imitation first too, just because it's a lot more subtle. I have a ton of luck with no weight on these guys. Typically, when I hand this lure to someone, I show them how to rig it, which I'll show you guys in a second. I just say toss it out weightless. Same thing as the worm, just like pops, just let it go all the way down. You can drag it a little bit, you can pop, the most minimal pop where it's just the tip of your rod. I mean, your hand's doing this, barely at all. And then this guy, I've already revealed, we're gonna put the bullet weight on it for the paddle tail swim bait. The reason I do that is if I throw this in weightless with a hook, it's not gonna swim right. This tail doesn't wanna kick when it's coming through the water. So I was messing around with those weights. The one on the left wasn't heavy enough to make it do anything. The second one, I put the bigger one on and it was dropping like a rock. It was swimming too fast. I put the middle weight on and I could swim it through the water column. And that was just me messing around in a clear body of water where I didn't even think there was fish. I was just trying to figure out these paddle tails. You gotta find the right weight. That middle weight I found, I think it's a steel weight too. I think it's by Eagle Claw. But you find that right weight and this thing will look like a fish swimming through the water and other fish. Fish eat fish. Okay, so let's talk about how I rig up these rigs. So the first thing we're gonna do when we rig up our rig, we're gonna tie our line to our hook. And we're gonna use the Palomar knot. How do we do that? I got a video, if you wanna watch that, I'll put it in the link in the description below. You can click on that and you can watch the full video, but I'm just gonna draw it real quick. So we got our main line coming up the rod, it's coming off. You got plenty of line out, you got your hook out. So now what you're gonna do is you're gonna bring the line through the eyelet, you're gonna come back through, you take this loop, you pinch here and here, and you're gonna take this loop and you go under and then over and through. So this line's gonna come back out like that. This is a big mess. You take this hook and you push it through this loop. Now you have your knot and you're gonna cinch it down. So you're gonna slowly pull on it. You're gonna wet your line with your mouth. When it tightens down, that whole knot will be, that's a terrible picture. Watch the video, it's a lot better. We've got our extra wide gap hook attached to the main line with our Palomar knot. Now let's rig up the first plastic. It's gonna be this worm. Ideally what we want to do, you can see a couple points right here. You can see how this is lined up. The hook and the eye are lined up. And that's where you want your lure, your soft plastic, to line up. So you kind of want it to be straight on that line. Now, how do we do that? I'm gonna flip this hook upside down, because this is how I usually do it. What I do is I take the head of the worm, I push it into that point in the bend on the hook. Now I'm gonna show you on this guy. Where the hell is the hook? Yep, where am I going? So you can see the picture, you can see my hook right here. So I got my worm, now let's get up into it. Okay, so I go in the head, right down to that bend. You see where that is? And now what you're gonna do is you're gonna bend, you're gonna pull it through the head, through the worm, just up to that hook, and then turn the hook into it. And then what you do, you slide it up the hook, and then you're gonna spin the soft plastic. So now what you're doing, you've covered that top of the hook and your knot. So now you have your worm properly set up on the top part of your hook, but you need to put that bottom part somewhere. This part, you need to put that in there. And the way I do it is I rig it weedless. This is a Texas rig without a weight. If you want to be specific, I know people would leave a comment. So what you're gonna do now, you see where this part of the hook right here lines up with the worm? That's where you want the hook to come through, because you want it to line up like that. You want it to be straight. You want it to be all bunched up or anything. You pinch right here, take your hook. Ooh, this is hard to do left-handed. So now you can see it's sticking through over here. Now all you do is you take the plastic and just lift it a little bit. That's hanging straight. The hook's not exposed, but if the fish bites it, boom, the hook pops out. So this is a weightless Texas rig on a 1/0 extra wide gap hook with a 5-inch plastic worm. So that's the first rig, because I don't know why, but fish love it. It's easy to fish. All you do is you toss it out, let it do nothing. It doesn't get hung up in the weeds. It's a huge bonus as a beginner and a novice. You don't want to constantly be pulling weeds off of there. It's more than frustrating. That's why I go with that weedless Texas hook. Now I do the same thing with this craw. This is a weird shape. It's skinny and it's fat. So the way you rig this guy, the butt of the bait and the head of the bait, you're gonna go into the butt, just down to that bend, and then you take it and you come through. You slide it up the hook, bury that hook or the knot. And it's a little difficult with all these flanges and stuff. I don't know if you guys can see where I'm gonna come through, but I can feel it with my finger. So I just pinch there, line it up with my finger, make sure it goes through. You can see it's right there. You know, if I pinch in on it, let me get my face out of there. So now what you do, you lift up, and then it's text posed. Again, weedless Texas rig. That's the craw imitation. Same deal. The only difference with this guy is it's got all those flanges working, and it's smaller than the worm, so I think it's less intimidating, but fish go bananas for this thing. You know, I've already caught them on this spring early, and I'll catch them all the way through the fall. So I always have a set of these craws when I go fishing, just in case. Confidence bait, maybe? All right, so let's look at the last rig. We're still using the same hook. We're just gonna add a weight on the front. So I'm gonna show you how to do that. So this last rig, why do I have those two other rigs? And I said they typically work, but why do I have another rig for beginners that I always hand to them? Because beginners don't want to stand still. They get bored. Oh, nothing's happening. I'm not doing anything. So if you give them a moving lure, they're doing something. And this lure, all you have to do is wind it and it comes right back to you. Sometimes you want to give beginners something that's moving. So you can see the bullet weight, that wide gap hook. And this is what they would call like a real Texas rig. We got the bullet weight, we got the hook. Now we're going to take a paddle tail swim bait. The important thing when rigging this guy, you're going to rig it Texas weedless the same way we did the other stuff. But what you're gonna pay attention to is the way the angle of this paddle tail hangs. See how it's at that angle? That's the bottom down here. So you want it swimming through the water like this. To properly rig this, you're gonna have to go into the head, out through the belly, rotate it out, and the hook's gonna be on top. So you always want the hook to be on top, on this side. In, out that way, same thing. We're gonna go down to that bend, then we're gonna make sure we're centered, come out through the belly, go up over that knot, so it's nice and straight like this. Same thing when we Texas rig anything else. See the bottom of the hook? That's where we're gonna go in, pinch, go like that. And now you can see that's barely even there. There's the hook. I don't know if you guys can see that. Let's take a look at this guy, all rigged up, Texas rigged paddle tail swim bait. Also very weedless until the fish bites it. So it's gonna come through grass and stuff like that. It's just gonna swim, it's gonna draw the attention of fish, and they're gonna bite these things. Smallmouth, largemouth, a lot of things will hit things that look like fish. What is pegging? You can see this weight sliding up and down. Now sometimes you don't want that. If there's a lot of rock, you don't want it to get stuck in the rock and stuff like that. This is a cheap trick, not the band. You wanna peg that weight, so it just stays there. It's not moving around. Sometimes if you fish through weeds, this will pick up a ton of grass, so keeping it pegged is good. There are things for keeping that weight pegged that you can buy. But I saw this hack where you can use a toothpick. So let me show you that guy. So the one thing I found is the tip of that toothpick is too sharp. You gotta trim it. You're gonna trim just the tip off so it's kind of flat like that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna stick the tip of our trim toothpick right in the hole of that bullet weight. And what that's gonna do, it's gonna pinch the line against it and peg it. So I wet it down just in case, stick the tip in there, and I just break it off. You can trim it up. You can see that weight won't slide now. So now it's a more compact rig. It's not gonna slide around, hit rocks, draw more attention, or give you problems getting hung up on things. This is the last rig, and when a beginner wants to do something active, we got the paddle tail swim bait with the bullet weight on the front. It's a little heavier so they can fling it further too, so that's kind of a bonus. The strikes on these are very aggressive, so that's also a bonus for beginners. So those are the 3 different rigs. If you guys have ever thrown these, you know how effective they are. If you haven't, I encourage you to rig them up and try them this year. So I hope you guys found this video entertaining, or at least informative. And the reason I wanted to make this video, aside of wearing the bunny ears, was because I've been fishing with new fishermen who started like last year or fished very occasionally. And they didn't know about that rig. And I was like, dude, you should try throwing this. And they were like, how do you do that? And I just showed them how to hook it up. So I figured I should show you guys how to do it as well, just in this video. If you only learn one rig, you should get with that wide gap hook and soft plastics. It's the cheapest way to go out. All you need is your line, the hook, and the plastic. So as beginners, that's an effective, inexpensive way to really get some fish on shore in your hand for a picture. All right, new viewers, subscribers, freshwater fishing novices and anglers. This has been Freshwater Fishing Novice Friday. My name is Molez. I'm the Freshwater Fishing Novice. Ding! This is the Freshwater Fishing Novice YouTube channel. I want to thank you guys for watching this week. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Catch you next Friday.